Thank you, you did a wonderful job. It's not about we who know what we're doing. I'm Daniel Zeishner, Member of Parliament for Cambridge, and welcome friends, welcome to this great rally, a great turnout. And thank you for joining thousands and thousands of other people across the country who are making the same point together today, to take a stand, to send a very clear message. We are European and we want to stay in the European Union. Now, I don't know what it is about these rallies, but it does seem to bring out the rain. But thank you for all of those who were here a few weeks ago, because we gathered here after the June the 23rd vote. I guess many of us in shock, in sadness, in many cases in sheer disbelief. Now since then, not much has become very clear, has it? Sadly, what we have seen and has become clear is the ugly side of the country that was uncovered. The rise in xenophobia, those horrible, horrible messages in Huntingdon. The sense that people were being told to go home when this is their home. Absolutely horrible. And I've spoken and heard from so many people, friends, colleagues from the European Union who live and work here, who no longer feel welcome. Now, that's not the case in most of Cambridge, but that's how people are beginning to feel, not welcome in their own home and their own country. And we've seen an unprecedented rise across the European Union of people applying for citizenship. We've seen British nationals in other European countries feeling a real sense of uncertainty, worried about being used as bargaining chips. We see people in our National Health Service, upon whom we depend so much, suddenly worrying about their future, horrible for them and disastrous for us. And we've seen an unprecedented, and some would say panicky, reaction from the Bank of England to deal with the economic crisis. And in cities like our own in Cambridge, we've got clear evidence from our universities and our researchers that there's an immediate impact here and now on our research partnerships, which are so important for us. It's impacting the whole UK economy. I could go on, others would speak about this. But be in no doubt, the vote on June the 23rd has already done us huge harm and will continue to do so. But of course, while there's a fog of uncertainty about the processes ahead, I can tell you that on your behalf, I am very clear. Whenever there is a vote in the House of Commons, I will be voting to stay, not leave. And friends, isn't it just a touch ironic that those who said we should take back control now don't seem to want to take back control to our Parliament? Now, why could that be? Why could that be? Well, because they know there is no majority in the House of Commons for Brexit. No majority for a foolish act of self-harm. A foolish act that, in my view, was only ever taken to paper over rifts in the Conservative Party for no regard for the wider interests of the British people. So there will be battles. There will be battles, I can assure you, in Parliament to come. But this is a long way from being settled. The lawyers will argue over when and what Article 50 means, but it's the politics that matter. And it's there that is a challenge we must meet. Because we must not let the Brexiteers dictate the terms of the debate. Yes, there was a narrow majority on June the 23rd. But now the British public knows that they were lied to, that there is no magic £350 million for the NHS, that the reality isn't going to be some kind of blissful independence in the future, but a messy fudge and a compromise. Who knows how they would vote if they were asked again? And that's why whatever is negotiated, friends, it must be put to the British people again in either a referendum or a general election. But let me finish on what I think is a bigger point, because it's right that we look calmly at the costs and risks of exit. It's right that we have reasoned discussions and debates, as we did here in this very Guildhall a few weeks ago. And I believe it's important we have discussions with each sector, and I'll be just convening those in the autumn, and I encourage people to take part, and I thank those who have already taken part in the consultation. It's right that we make a strong case to protect our researchers, our universities, those who are living here. But in the end, isn't it also about something bigger? I don't think any of you are here today just because of calculated, narrow self-interest. Like me, you were distraught on June the 24th because the hopes and dreams of a better world have been set back. That dream of a Europe of nation states working together for the common good, resolving disputes through democratic discussion and debate and compromise, rather than war and conflict. That great hope that the horrors of 2 calamitous wars in the last century, that hope that we put that behind us, had somehow been set back. And in my view, the debate before June the 23rd had been far too narrow, far too instrumental. What we needed was more passion, more optimism, more enthusiasm for what the European Union has actually achieved and can go on to achieve. Our geography, our culture, our history is inescapably European, and we should be proud of it. I don't just want Cambridge and the United Kingdom to stay in the European Union. Friends, I want us to turn this around and work with our friends and partners across the continent to build a better Europe. Together we can do it. Thank you very much.
Daniel in the Parliament at the moment. Our next speaker is going to give an important perspective for Cambridge, one of researchers. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Andrew Steele from Science is Vital.
Hello everybody. I am Andrew Steele and I am a research scientist. To be precise, I'm a computational biologist. Obviously science is something that's very important to Cambridge and to the rest of the UK. And scientists are a group who are particularly concerned about the outcome of the EU referendum. So I want to give you a few reasons why. Now the UK is a great place in the world to do science. With just 1% of the world's population and 3% of the GDP, we produce 15% of the world's high impact research papers, as measured by the citations from other scientists around the world. But that great success is on the back of our membership of the European Union for several different reasons. The first and most obvious of these is funding. We spend about £150 per person per year on public funded research in the UK, and about 10% of that money comes from the EU. In fact, we win when it comes to science. Our government pays in £12 per person to the EU research budget, and we get £15 back. So our science and research is great within Europe. And this is doubly important because the UK government is actually reducing the amount that we spend on science within the UK. We spend less than 0.5% of GDP on public funded research here, which puts us at the bottom of the G8, and we're below average within the OECD and even within the EU taken as a whole. So this European money is especially important. Now, these aren't just abstract percentages of GDP. I also run a campaign called Scienceogram, which tries to make sense of how much we spend on science. To take the example of cancer, cancer is a disease that kills nearly a third of us, and yet we spend just £2.80 per person per year on public funded cancer research. Now, I think that's crazy. I think if there's a disease with a third chance of killing me, I want to spend more than £3 a year trying to work out why. So anything that's a threat to science funding, I think is a threat that we need to counter. The Leave campaign have, of course, promised to make up for the shortfall if we leave the EU. But they've made this promise to loads of other groups as well. And if the vast majority of economists are right, we're going to have a smaller economy with which to fund these promises. So this is very, very important stuff. But it's not just about the funding. It's also about international collaboration. EU grants enable European researchers from across the continent to work together and get money that can fund cross-continental collaborations. So if I'm in a UK research group and we want to collaborate with some researchers in France and some researchers in Lithuania, we can collaborate under the same coordinated funding from the EU. That's just something that's extremely difficult to achieve outside of the EU model. There's also freedom of movement, which is vitally important to the way modern science works. I work in a lab of about 15 people. There are 10 different nationalities represented. My colleagues come from all around the world and all around the EU. And not having to fill out a load of complicated visa paperwork allows us to do what we need to do, which is recruit the best scientists wherever they are in the world. We're sending out completely the wrong message with this vote. Scientists have been put off the UK already. I personally know of an example of a French PhD student who turned down her studentship on June 24th, citing the result of the referendum that had just been announced. And scientists for EU are collecting a database that show hundreds of examples of collaborations that have been damaged or people turning down job offers in the UK and that sort of thing resulting from the EU vote. So these things are happening right now. The people who are being affected by this stuff aren't Brussels bureaucrats. They're young researchers like me who might want to go and work in the EU one day. They're our colleagues in Europe who want to collaborate with UK scientists. And ultimately, it's all of us, because science is how we develop the technologies and the medical treatments of tomorrow, and along the way, it often boosts our economy. So losing access to this EU research funding is going to have an impact on every single person stood here today and around the UK. So we need to send a very clear message to the government. It's vitally important that although Theresa May tells us that Brexit means Brexit, whatever Brexit actually means, we need to maintain access to the UK's EU research programmes. Because without that, we cannot stay at the forefront of global science. Thank you very much.
I'll try not to fall over. Thank you, Andrew. Next up is Lord Richard Balfe, who's from Cambridge Conservatives and a former MEP, so he might have some quite interesting things to say here now today.
Hello. Right, now I've got the right mic. Well, the most important... Can you hear now? Yep, right, okay. The most important thing we have to do is to remember what unites us. The fact of the matter is that had it been left to me, there wouldn't have been a referendum. There was. But I also regret a lot of the way the referendum was carried out. Project Fear never inspires people, it frightens people. But the case for Europe, as we all know, is a moral case. It's a case for working with neighbours, with friends, with other countries, helping people to work together and building on cooperation. Frankly, if it does cost this country a few £1 million, we are a rich country. Go to Eastern Europe and you will see that we have a moral duty to our fellow European citizens, which... And that's why I regretted the whole of the Project Fear thing, because I thought that it was going in completely the wrong direction. But what we now have to do is to work together on the detail. It's only a couple of months, we haven't even invoked Article 50, but we've got a long slog ahead of us. I believe that working with the Council, working with the University, and working with all of the public players, the scientists, the researchers, we can do a lot. I'm very pleased to see the electoral reform badge here, because I think we could have a much fairer electoral system, which would allow all parties to be adequately represented. And in a democracy, that's extraordinarily important. But if we're going to deliver, I think we can turn round this result, but it's not going to be done overnight. It's going to be done slowly, and it's going to be done painstakingly. In the much derided but occasionally useful House of Lords, we have a very clear majority for Remain. And through our committees, and working across the House, as they say, and I sit on a committee chaired by a Labour peer, Lord Whitty, and we are going to examine everything in detail, and we are going to throw this back on the government and make them realise what they're leading us into. But there's also... but finally, there's also another dimension. I've spent 25 years in the European Parliament, 10 years on what is called the European Parliament to Campus programme, and many years as an advisor to CERN, which is not part of the European Union, but is an example of high quality physics in Europe. We have many friends there. They have to also realise, and they do, that many of us deplore the result that came out, and we look to them also to put forward constructive demands which make it clear to the government why they can't have the little England they want, and why we all have to work together in the future. This is going to go on for some time. What I will say is this: one vote cannot end our historic relationship. There has at some time to be another vote on whether or not we accept what comes out. Brexit cannot just mean Brexit, i.e. whatever they do to us, we get back and accept it. And what we have to do is keep this campaign alive across the country to make sure that across the parties that there is a demand for a further democratic vote, and that we can work in that to overturn this foolish decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard. That was great. And I think there's a very strong message there. Democracy does not end on 23rd of June. The process continues, and we will keep campaigning. I'd like to welcome next, sorry, I'm forgetting the name there, Councillor Lewis Herbert, who's leader of Cambridge City Council and has been a great help to us over the last few weeks in organising our meetings.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. As Paul came to one of our council meetings and said, we've really got to stir this issue up. So on the 5th of August, we organised a meeting which filled the large hall, and we had the voices of the university, of business, of the community, and also of the NHS. And the voices in Cambridge, your voices are far more powerful than we sometimes estimate. I think we have in Cambridge that unity of people right across the community, and people who've got a lot of influence in the British government and in the British establishment. We can make the changes that we need to achieve, and we can turn over this decision. It's not going to be easy. We have a government that really, as people have said, doesn't know what it's doing, hasn't made up its mind. I just really want to raise one particular issue, and that is the issue of the EU citizens that we have in this city. We have 9,000 people from the EU who are not UK citizens. They are all members of this community. Many of them have been here 30 years. One of the issues I want our parliamentary colleagues, and I'm sure they will follow it, both Heidi Allen and Daniel, who are both united to fight these issues, is to campaign to get an early commitment from Theresa May that our citizens, our EU citizens, can stay, and that there's no uncertainty about their future. They are as much, I mean, many of us, there's many people from Cambridge who've lived here all of their lives, but I'm sure that a majority of the people I'm looking at didn't actually get born in Cambridge, and so we are a city of international faith. We are a city that is only strong. So if you actually look at that 9,000, half of that 9,000 are actually working in research. Research is vital to this city. 1,200 work for the university, and I think about 500 or 600 work in Addenbrooke's Hospital alone. So everything in Cambridge depends on those people, and was rightly pointed out in the meeting that we had. The people on lower incomes who actually do the jobs that keep the city going are people from other parts of Europe too. The one other piece of information that came out in the meeting that we had at the beginning of August was that it would take the Home Office about 100 years to process all of the applications from the EU citizens who live in the UK. So I just think that they aren't a bargaining chip. There isn't anything to be gained from Europe by trying to delay a commitment to them. They are here, they are Cambridge people. The commitment could be given by Theresa May now. And finally, I'd just like to say that the City Council will continue, the City Council will continue to support and to work with each of the interests. We basically have to have a manifesto of those unnegotiable issues that Cambridge will continue to fight for, which starts with those, and then it particularly focuses on freedom of movement being a principal aim that we have to achieve. We need to have that freedom for us to move around Europe and for people to come. This is a scientific discovery, innovation capital, and it will only function if we continue to have that. So thank you for coming today. We will continue as a council to back the campaign to keep us in Europe. We are Europeans, we were and we will be.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Our next speaker is from Cambridge Green Party, Sharon Carr, and I'd just like you all to welcome her up to the stage.
In years gone by, people will look back at the 48% and say, we fought the good fight. But it's now in our hands to ensure that people in the future also see us as those who ensured that despite the result, we didn't sit and mourn our loss too long, and instead made sure that we created a society worth living in. It would be easy to blame the 52% for making a bad choice, but even in a city seemed to be enlightened, over 15,000 people voted to leave. We cannot ignore that and put it down to ignorance, just as we cannot ignore the rising hate crime throughout the nation. Even living in Cambridge, I've seen a rise since the referendum in the amount of people that ask me if I was born in this country, as if to decide whether or not I was worth something. Well, we must make demands to our government to ensure that whatever policies they make emulate at least some of what the EU stands for. We must demand a parliamentary vote on any terms of exit before invoking Article 50. We must demand the protection of free movement within the EU, stronger environmental protections, workers' rights, and the single market. We must demand a referendum on the terms of the final deal, and we must demand the protection of young people's futures. We must stand up against racism and xenophobia wherever it occurs, and we must also not create further divide in our society by blaming and putting down those who voted out. The referendum has shown us what happens to large parts of the country when it is left alone to fend for itself, when people are so crippled by poverty, inequality and debt. For the majority of leavers, this was their way of showing their disenfranchisement against the establishment that has loathed them. So I say, despite the result, we must now work together to ensure a good future for the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Is Gaia Aurora Costa here?
The European Union has a strong record of advocating for LGBT rights. It was the EU that outlawed discrimination on grounds of sexual orientation back in 2000, and the European Court of Justice, which told countries that offer civil unions that they must give gay people all the same rights as married couples. However, EU states have different laws when it comes to any greater protection. This includes same-sex marriage and adoption by same-sex couples. Staying inside the EU is a strong show of solidarity with gay people across the EU. But it is also a concrete way of achieving change. The simple fact is that gay people in these countries have are more likely to see their rights protected by EU-wide legislation than by their own national government. And by keeping Britain in the EU, we can be an active voice for reaching equality in these countries. In 18 out of 28 states, gay marriage is illegal, and in 15 out of 28 states, adoption by same-sex couples is still illegal in the EU. By leaving the EU and handing the power over to Brexit, we are turning our back on the LGBT community in these countries. So I urge you to stand with Remain to fight for the rights of the LGBT community. Today is also the day of the Think Pink Festival. It takes place in Guildhall, and it is a community day for the rights of LGBT, and it has a lot of fun activities and entertainment, and I advise you to check it out.
Thank you, Gaia, that was great. Our next speaker is Sam Owens, who runs Thirsty Cambridge, which is, I believe, in Chesterton area. And he will give the small business person's perspective on Brexit and what it might mean for the UK.
Hello, I buy and sell booze for a living. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. And when I buy booze from other countries in the European Union, it's really, really easy. When I buy booze from countries that is outside the European Union, it is not very easy. I think there's a point in there somewhere. When I sell booze inside the European Union, it's really easy. When I sell booze to Switzerland, that amazing country that the Brexiteers hold up as this sort of manna from heaven, guess what? It's a ball ache. So, all I would say is, from the rapacious businessman's perspective, stuff is going to get more expensive. And it's not because I'm saving up for my villa in Barbados. It's just going to get more expensive. Obviously, the currency has taken a bit of a plunge. That doesn't help when you're buying stuff. But that is what is going to happen. So that really would just be my simple point. Stuff is going to get more expensive because it's going to get more complicated to do business. Thank you very much. And if you want to come and have a nice drink, Thirsty on Chesterton Road. Lots of European wines and beers.
Thank you, Sam. I think we're all going to have to pop in there, possibly not all at the same time. It could be tricky. Our next speaker probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. It's Julian Huppert, our former MP and a member of the Liberal Democrat Party.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work that's gone into organising this. It is a huge, huge amount of effort, and it's great to see so many of you here through the rain, standing, saying how much we care. I'm a proud European citizen, and I want to keep being a European citizen for many, many years to come, and I hope you'll join me in that. But friends, we are a poorer country now than we were 3 months ago. We're poorer financially, the pound's down, we're spending more. And that's awful, particularly because the people who will be the worst hit are those who are already the worst hit by society. They will bear the brunt of Nigel Farage's fantasy. But it's worse than that. We're poor not just financially, but we're poorer as a nation. Poorer spiritually, emotionally, morally. We've turned our back on so many good things, or at least we will have done if we don't manage to stop it. We've closed the door of opportunity for so many young people, taken away chances they possibly didn't even know they were going to want to have in a few years' time. We didn't give them a say on it, we just ripped their chances away. It is a disgrace. that this happens. And I've had lots of people say to me, look, Julian, you lost, just shut up and accept it. I'm not going to do that. No one here is going to do that. None of us should let that happen. We must keep going. It's not over, and even when it is, we should keep saying how we need to get back in, how we are better working elsewhere. I'm still emotional about this. I'm still angry. Are you angry? Yes! I'm not, I have to say, angry with all the 52%. No. I'm sad. I'm sad that over decades of neglect, we had let people's lives get to the stage where they thought this was the right thing to do, that they would believe the lies that they were being told. I'm sad that that is what has happened, decade after decade after decade. And there are real problems for some people. There are problems with getting housing. There are problems with finding space at a doctor's surgery. There's problems in schools. So let's build some more houses. Let's expand the schools. Let's make sure the NHS has some money. I'd love the 350 million a week, but it's not going to happen this way. That was a lie. So I'm sad that they were taken in. We've heard about the hate crime. The 52%, they are not all racists. But all the racists believe most of the country agree with them. That is the harm that's been done. So I'm sad about those who voted that way, who are misled. But I'm really furious with the politicians who led them that way. And there is a long list of shame. People who said things they knew were true. The look of terror when they saw the result and realised that they might actually have to do something. How quickly they all ran away. Nigel Farage to advise Donald Trump. And wouldn't that be even worse? I'm furious about that. But I'm even more annoyed because we should never have had this referendum in the first place. There was no need ever to do this. When I had the great privilege of being the MP here, I fought hard against the plans then to have a referendum because I knew that it would divide the country, that just having the referendum would set people against people, that it would be a distraction from the things that we actually need to do to make people's lives better. I did everything I could to stop that referendum from happening. And there is no way I would have ever voted for it to happen, but 316 MPs voted for that referendum. That error, the harm they have caused, whatever side of the debate they were on, is huge. Wherever you're from, look up how your MP voted. Did they do this to us? Now, I was asked to say what were the key things that we should insist on as we have Brexit. Now, I have a very long list. We should have free movement, because it's better for us, and it's better for them, and it's essential for our businesses, our research, our society. And I've heard from some of the Leavers, by the way, saying the EU is racist, that it means that we can't be decent to people from Syria, from Africa, from Asia. You know what? Let's be decent to Europeans and Africans and Asians. We don't have to decide we can do all of this for everybody. So on my list that is non-negotiable is free movement. It's the free market of goods and services to make sure we can have an economy that we can deliver. It's workers' rights, it's the environment, it's LGBT, it's everything. In fact, the easiest way to get that package would be simply to stay in the European Union. Let's make sure that happens. How do we get there? That's a long and complicated route, but we need to take action. What I'd like all of you to do is to make sure this won't be a one-off thing. Talk to your friends, your family, wherever they are. Encourage them to contact their friends, their family, so the government doesn't just think they can get away with destroying our hope for the future. Let's make sure we make a difference. When the next general election comes, or the referendum, whichever it is, I suspect a general election, make sure this is a key issue. I've been selected to stand again for Parliament here, and I and my party will be clear. Vote for me, vote for us. We'll do everything we can to stay in the European Union or get back in if we've already left through some disaster. Make that matter across the country. Keep the fight going. Thank you very much.